Two titans. Zion Clark speaks with me exclusively about his aspirations to conquer the Olympics. Then I have a wide-ranging conversation with writer Jim Hirsch. You know the name from the Hurricane. I'm Michael Reel, and this is Real Urban News. Talk about your Hollywood experience. I know you are the screenwriter or the writer for the book Hurricane.
I met Rubin Hurricane Carter, maybe 1998, and I wrote a book about him. And Rubin, of course, has an amazing story about being wrongfully incarcerated for 20 years. He ultimately was vindicated. He was set free. He was wrongfully convicted. They made a movie about Rubin's story starring Denzel Washington.
Hurricane is the professional name that I acquired later on in life.
Rubin Hurricane Carter has defeated the world.
One thing I could do and the only thing was box.
Can you believe that black punk? He thinks he's champion of the world.
We're looking for two Negroes in a white car.
Any two will do.
Look carefully, sir. Are these the two men who shot you?
He said no.
Take another look, sir.
Rubin Carter, you are sentenced to be imprisoned for the remainder of your natural life.
I'm innocent.
Took his story to a whole other level, not just in this country, but abroad, and really not only exposed the injustices of our criminal justice system, but it was also just a story of one man's determination and resilience to overcome a great wrong.
Are you surprised that here in America, here in 2020, we're still fighting that fight, the criminal justice reform fight?
I am not surprised that we are still fighting that fight, because I think it's unclear whether we've ever really embraced that fight. We've certainly had tremendous leaders years back and now who have spoken up about the injustices in our criminal justice system, but that's different than having real systemic change. I think what will hopefully be different now, because there is now this energy and this movement, particularly among young people, not just young black people, but young white people, young people across the spectrum who have recognized that there are systemic injustices with our criminal justice system, with policing, with corporate America, just across the board. And I think they're not going to just drop the ball.
In your writing and in your commentary and in your observation of society, where are we now? What do you call this? Is there a phrase that we can label this time in our history? I
would call it a reckoning with our historic injustices. The fact that we have mistreated African Americans is no secret. People have known that from the day that we first start bringing Africans to America in the 1600s. And so it's not as if there was some sudden epiphany that, oh my goodness, people of color, people in marginalized communities have been mistreated. I think what's happening now is that there's been several catalytic events that have focused the attention of Americans. One was, of course, the brutal killing of George Floyd. The fact that there's police brutality against people of color is something we've known, but the fact that this was on film and so many people saw it in its graphic detail, I think that was really important. It's worth remembering that in the 1960s, one of the key moments of the civil rights movement were the television images of Bull Connors in Birmingham, Alabama, training or unleashing the dogs. Once those television images were seen, that had a galvanic effect in changing public opinion in favor of civil rights. I think you're seeing something similar now. The images of the brutal killing of George Floyd has that same galvanic effect, combined with the younger generation. I have two children, ages 22 and 19. They've been raised in a very different environment than you and I have been raised, in a social media world in which I think they were taught and they saw that marginalized communities black, brown, gay, etc., they deserve their own voice. They deserve agency.
In your writing about sports, here again we see athletes coming to the foreground and not only just raising their fists, as we saw the Black Power in the late 60s at the Olympics, but now raising their voices and speaking up and speaking out. We were talking off camera, sports is dormant right now. But with them, these athletes coming forward, LeBron James and others, you really can't tell.
Sports have always given or provided a great platform for people of color to protest, to express their views about what's going on in the world, from Jackie Robinson, Muhammad Ali, Bill Russell. But there was still great institutional resistance to those voices, which we saw with Colin Kaepernick. The day has changed. Now, when sports resume, you're going to see black athletes and white athletes take a knee and not be afraid of retaliation. Whether LeBron takes a knee or not, I'm not sure, but LeBron is not going to hesitate in speaking his mind, in wearing the T-shirts, and down the line after LeBron. Unlike, say, Michael Jordan, who was unwilling to put at risk his own commercial standing by speaking out on social issues, we now have a generation of young black athletes who will be willing.
Who says something to this president that we have now who seems to be on the wrong side of history?
The voters. I think the only way we're going to get change, and not to be cynical, is that we have to vote in a new generation of leaders who understand the problem and are willing to take action. And it's not just Donald Trump in the White House. It's a whole generation of mostly white leaders who I think have been complacent with the status quo and who were unwilling to make the hard decisions to make real fundamental change in how we as a country must make progress. It takes moral courage in order to bring about systemic change.
What is it about particularly black men that white men are afraid of?
I think that ignorance is the principal obstacle. And let me say, I'm no paragon of virtue when it comes to perceptions of black and white. I make judgments about people based on their color all the time. What's different about me is that as a journalist and as an observer, I have seen so much racial oppression in my life, it caused me to change. So just so you know about me, I grew up in an all-white suburb of St. Louis. No black friends, no black experience, nothing. And then I went out into the world. And I just started seeing things. In 1989, I flew to Louisville for a story. I got picked up by a cab driver, a white guy in his 50s, had kind of a stubble, a cap on. He's driving me around. I said to him, "So, what's going on in Louisville?" He said, "Well, things just haven't been the same since they let the niggers out." And they started talking to me about desegregation in Louisville. And what was striking about it wasn't that he used a racial epithet, but just he said it so casually, and he just assumed that I would be in line with his views. I've had those experiences 100 times over in my life. And I just think white people need to open their eyes and see what's going on in ways that are both overt and subtle.
Zion Clark. Jim, you guys are working on a book.
A couple months ago, somebody called me and said, "You have to meet this kid, Zion Clark." And he is a kid, he's 22 years old, but he has a story unlike any other person you'll ever meet. And the story is that he was born without legs, and he was abandoned at birth by his mother, thrown into this indifferent foster care system in Ohio. So he was born with multiple strikes against him. No parents, no home, no legs, no money, and black. And despite all those odds against him, he turned out to be this elite athlete. He was a championship wrestler in high school, as well as a speed bike racer. And now he has dreams of participating in the Olympics, both in the Paralympics as a speed racer, but also as a wrestler, in the regular Olympics, which has never been done before. So, well, you've got to meet him. And what's amazing about Zion really isn't so much his athletic achievements, his physical achievements, but that he survived this really horrific experience in a system that just didn't give a damn about him. He's the kind of person that when I refer to that next generation of leaders that we need to bring America together and to bring us forward. I think Zion is going to be one of those people.
When you're crafting this sports narrative of Zion, what do you want the reader to walk away with?
I want the reader to feel the struggle. I want the reader to feel the striving and the pain and the hardship, but ultimately the triumph. I want the reader to go on that journey, to make sure when you see anyone overcome odds and succeed, it's not just about standing on the pedestal and getting the gold ribbon draped around your neck. It's about the struggle. And look, and we all struggle. It's just that Zion's struggle was unique. And I think if readers understand that and feel that, then they will come away a better person.
When you talk about the struggle and overcoming the horrific odds, how important is it that a person have a really spectacular personality and not be trapped and bitter in that overcoming, but be personable, be mannerable, and be optimistic, be uplifting, and then be inspiring?
That type of personality is extremely important if you want to be a leader. I think the best leaders are those individuals who you love to invite into your home and sit down and have a cup of coffee with. And just because you find that person so personable. And it's not only you want to be inspired by that person, you want wisdom and guidance. You want to have a laugh, and you want to be able to engage, and you want to be able to connect on a way that's very human. I think those are the leaders that are able to get the most done. We don't want to put leaders on pedestals because invariably they will disappoint us. We are all flawed human beings. And so I think the best leaders are those who expose their vulnerabilities as well as their wisdom and say, hey, look, I have something to share with you. Come along and let's do this together. And I think Zion has that personality.
You said today you were feeling really good. It was good to be back on the mat.
I took the last couple days to heal myself up. I got really, not per se injured, but I was banged up to the point where like my performance was just starting to dip down, and I wasn't getting my shots off. I wasn't able to get my attacks off the way that I wanted because, I was just banged up. I couldn't pick my arms up like this. I couldn't move forward. I couldn't even lay down on my back. It was just bad. And I finally, just last night, got a very deep tissue massage that targeted all of the extremely painful spots. And I woke up refreshed this morning, man.
And you got on the mat, you could feel the energy. You felt revived or recharged?
I felt fast and dangerous, more than usual, which is good. Because I want to be able to excel that feeling to where I walk into any room, I walk into any cage, I walk onto any mat. Doesn't matter where I'm at. Like, they're gonna know, they're gonna feel my energy, knowing that I'm here for a war. I'm here to battle.
And it's that fast and dangerous energy that you're using to catapult you to the Olympics?
Yeah, there's a lot of technique. I'm also training, but you gotta have high energy drilling, high energy technique. Just because, look, when you get to that level, those guys, they're already doing that day in, day out. I'm a lot younger. I'm almost 10 years younger than most of these cats I'm gonna have to go against. But I'm getting to that level where I'm starting to feel that. You know what we wrestlers call that? When you're just flowing, you're getting everything you want, we call it the flow state. You get in that flow state, nobody can beat you, hardly anybody. because you're just doing one move after another, after another, after another. I don't know if you saw in there. I was going with that one kid. He tried to jump over me, and I still caught his leg. I still took him down. Even though I was upside down on my head, I still managed to pull off the takedown just because I'm in that state of constant movement, constant reaction. I'm going to get my stuff. Doesn't matter what kind of situation I'm in.
In layman's terms, you were in a zone. Is that paramount to winning?
Yeah, you got to be focused. If you lose your moment of concentration during a match or during a fight, there's a high chance that someone's going to either knock you out, knock you clean out, take you down, or make you pass out. It's one of those three things are going to happen. That's why you got to have them focused. You never see someone in a fight look at their coach asking for direction. They're listening, but they're not going to look at them and take away their concentration. And that's what it is. I'm focused. I have that maximum level of focus, and I'm only listening to instruction, and I'm listening to what my body is telling me, and then that's it.
Is it that focus that has brought you this far? Obviously born with a lot of challenges, born with some setbacks, born with some disappointments, but everybody that we speak with has nothing but high praise for you.
You know, I've came a very long way. And with that tenacity that I have, it hasn't always been there. It hasn't, and I can guarantee that because I wasn't always completely motivated, but I had the right family situation, the right setting I was put into by the grace of God, because, you know, I give all praise to the big man. If he wasn't for him, I wouldn't even be here. And he gave me my mother that adopted me, and I was able to focus on my things, and she pushed me too. She would not let me quit. Would not. Like, if I tried to quit, I got grounded unless I kept doing the sport. That's how it went. Guess where I'm at now? I'm saying I'm one of the best athletes out here, and I'm just doing what I love. I'm having fun, making money, doing what I love to do. And people give me a lot of respect for that because they know I have a drive, and they know that I really am grinding, and they know if they really want to step out in front of me, I'm going to really give them the work too, because, you know, I will wrestle, I will fight, grapple anybody.
We're living in a strange environment right now, a lot of social unrest, and a lot of athletes are coming to the foreground, particularly a lot of African-American athletes are coming to the forefront and speaking out about some of the challenges that young African-American men like yourself are facing. What's your perspective on where we are now in terms of society?
It depends on what angle you look at it, to me. If you look at it in just the last 100 years of what we weren't able to do and what we can do now as human citizens, yeah, we came a long way. But now if you look at the respect and the rights we have, yeah, we came a long way, but the justice, the indifference between races is still, it's not a blurred line. There's still a very clear line, especially when it comes to police brutality, black targeted crimes. Because our people, we are trying to live. We are trying to have a good life for ourselves, for our kids, for our families. And we shouldn't have to be worried if we're just taking our kids to school and a cop pulls over and pulls a gun out on us, even though they clearly see I have my son and my daughter in the car. You know, that we shouldn't be living in fear like that. Even my mother, she took care of me and my two sisters, and she has 2 more foster kids right now. She's getting another one. And I couldn't imagine someone pulling her over, even though she has 2 very little kids, like first graders, like 7, 8-year-olds in the car, and they pull her out and try to arrest her, even though my mom's done nothing wrong. Half the people that get accused of doing something, half the people that are targeted and shot by cops, they're not doing anything wrong. And I don't think that's fair. And with the initiation of them being pulled over, it's supposed to be in suspicion of them breaking the law, not, I'm gonna pull them over just so I feel like pulling them over because I need to meet my status quo.
Sure.
Because, you know, when it gets to the end of that month, cops need to get a status quo for how many arrests they make and all of that, so they just start pulling people over left and right. That should not go into police brutality against the African-American population. That's how I feel. You know, and that's why everybody's rioting, because we are not getting justice. We are getting killed in the streets. We are not getting the right trials. We are getting wrongly accused of crimes constantly. It needs to stop. It needs to stop now. And if it doesn't stop, I'm going to be one of the guys that makes change.
What do you say to young men who have your same complexion about navigating this thing we call life?
With our complexion, navigating it's going to be a lot harder. it's going to be a lot more difficult. Speaking from experience, speaking from talking to other people that went through a lot of the same things I did, or people that just grew up in the struggle, or people that grew up in the ghetto in general. And I'm not just talking about like out here in Compton, LA, anywhere in the United States. If you're black and you grew up in poverty or grew up in the ghetto, it's gonna be hard. I grew up in the ghetto. I know what that feels like. It's hard. And when you have that complexion, you gotta keep your back straight and you gotta keep your head high. Because people, the second they see you walking with your head down, that's when they're gonna strike, and that's when they see they can take an advantage. They see nobody wants to see a proud black man. Nobody likes to see us standing strong and proud. That's why you don't see a lot of us in the sports besides football and basketball. You ever see that? You don't see a lot of African-American wrestlers. You don't see a lot of African-American fighters, except for really in my gym right here, because we're some bad dudes in there. We need to hold ourselves to a standard. Not saying we're better than everybody else, but saying we're better than what people perceive us as.
There you have it.
Yeah.
You're working with a noted writer, Jim Hirsch, the author of The Hurricane, a juggernaut in the writing spectrum. You all are preparing to write the Zion story.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about that.
I want to be able to share my life and my perspective, my viewpoints. Because me being who I am now with the platform that I have, I've reached millions already with my name alone. And maybe my social media doesn't show for it, but the amount of interaction I get, I don't, not to be that guy to live through social media, but when people message me, I read them. I read it because I want to see how many lives I affect. And I'm telling you, I've been reading them for last year and I haven't even got through all of them. Like, it's that many. And with that being said, I'm with the book, people can get a deeper understanding of me. And if they understand me, they can understand what I'm trying to tell them, what I'm trying to tell them is that, you know, you can do what I'm doing. And I know a lot of people have books like that, but what I'm doing is very wildly different. You know, there's not a lot of people like me doing what I do. Like, come on, man, I don't have legs. I'm training with the best fighters in the world. I'm training with the best racers in the world, the best athletes. And I'm beating them, and I'm competing against them on the same level, and I'm one of the youngest. Why can't I tell people what I'm doing to do that? Why can't I tell people the kind of mindset that I have, the kind of drive that I have to do all those things? And maybe they want to get an idea of that success, get a taste of that success, or at least feel the essence from what they're reading. And then they're gonna be like, man, I want to go do something. Maybe it might not be like the best wrestler in the world or the fastest racer like I'm trying to be, or they might be the next like Einstein. Just saying that like I want to be like the greatest at math, or the greatest at physics. It doesn't matter. I want to affect the world. I want to change lives, because you know sometimes words can really change someone's outlook on life. Because, you know, it's not always like what you can do, what you can physically do for something, but what can you tell them to make them think about themselves, make them like reevaluate their life and figure out what they can do for themselves to better their life, their surroundings, and just make a better life for themselves and the people around them. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm making a better life for myself, my family, my friends, my comrades, and I'm trying to just be the best man I can be. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. I want people to see how good of a man I am. Because I want to be forever known as a great man long after I'm dead, when I have great grandkids and they're talking about, yeah, my grandpa was the best guy out here to do it and he changed the world doing it. I want people to I want people to feel that from me, because that's what I want out of this book.
I like your description. Wildly different. Zion Clark. Thank you for being with me.
Yes, sir.